right. Hope everybody's having a great Tuesday night. Welcome back to On Texas Football. Welcome to the Tuesday night live stream here at On Texas Football. I'm Jeff Howe, joined as always on Tuesday by a man who's been making a cross-country trip the last few days. He is back in his domicile, CJ Vogel. CJ, how'd the travels treat you? You got over the jet lag, or are you still sluggish today?
No, we're doing well. If you don't mind me going on a little bit of a rant, but Jeff, I will do anything in my power. Anything in my power to make sure I never have to check a bag. Anything. I traveled up to Oregon this past weekend for a wedding. As a result, bring your golf clubs. Groom wants to go play golf. Who am I to say no to that? Disaster. Having to wait an hour and a half both ways. I got home at 2 o'clock in the morning last night from Bergstrom. Just waiting for that little baggage carousel to come back around. It's the worst. It's the worst. It's the worst. I feel really bad for anyone who has to travel with booster seats or car seats or strollers, because what a disaster it is for the oversized luggage as well. I'll never do it again. I will never do it again.
Been there, done that with the car seat or the stroller or what have you. You know what? I am team check a bag. So yes. We're just gonna have to agree to disagree on this. I'm paranoid about my stuff, like something getting flagged and me getting frisked by TSA. So I'm team check a bag. If it's even borderline, I'll do it. CJ, we've got a ton to do, so it's good to have you back in the great state of Texas. Good to have you back here doing the live streams here at On Texas Football. Hope everybody's doing well. If you got questions, comments, whatever you got, go ahead and line them up in the chat. Super chats, as always, jump to the front of the line. CJ, we got a lot to get into tonight. We got a couple of commitments, a decommitment actually, so we got a lot of recruiting to talk about. The NBA draft is going on right now. I think at any moment here, it might have just happened. The Washington Wizards, the home of lifetime Longhorn Trey Johnson, are about to be on the clock to start the draft. Dalen Swain is at the draft. He's in the green room. CJ, pretty much anywhere from, and again, this could change because, man, trying to keep track of NBA draft night trades, it's its own circus. The Oklahoma City Thunder have the 17th pick. I think that's probably as early. Again, given the way the draft order sits right now, it's probably as early as you'll see Dalen go. He was mocked by Jeremy Woo of ESPN today to the Spurs at number 20. So I want to root for Dalen in the NBA. So keeping my fingers crossed that doesn't happen. Hard to see him though getting past the Denver Nuggets at 26, CJ. So really anywhere from kind of mid to late teens to anywhere towards the end of the first round. It's a crapshoot for Dalen Swain.
Yeah, it is. And again, the benefit of going deeper in that draft is some of those teams that you just mentioned, whether it be the Thunder, the Spurs, or the Nuggets. I mean, all three have competed for championships. All three have been very much at the top of the Western Conference for the last 5 to 6 years or so. I know Spurs most recently joining that conversation. But that is a great place to go, great place to develop. Obviously, I think it's 3 organizations, Jeff, that really – find ways to get the most out of young talent. So for Swain, that's fantastic. It's probably a lifeline that he's not ending up in Washington as the number 1 pick, because that's where careers go to die before they have a chance to flourish.
Well, as they show Kwame Brown on the screen right now, because I've got the draft on in my office doing the show. Hopefully it goes. I think AJ DeBonce is probably helping better than John Wall or definitely Kwame Brown for his NBA career. And we get to see Trey Johnson up on the screen right now. So we'll be keeping track of the draft if something happens with Dalen Swain. But CJ, let's go ahead and get to some recruiting. Let's go ahead and get the negative news, the bad news, the unfortunate news. Let's get that out of the way because we get a super chat. Juan Garza coming through with the super chat. What happened with Cade Hogg and what are your thoughts? Good riddance and move on? CJ, there's a couple different layers to this. One interesting aspect, though, that I keep going back to, specifically at the linebacker position, and I know that's a legitimate concern right now because you look at the linebacker position in this 27 class, it's not a whole lot going on for Texas, but I think, CJ, from a roster standpoint, and this will bleed into something else we talk about tonight too, from a roster standpoint, you've got 3 really talented freshmen, and it's not going to be cheap to bring all 3 of those guys back if you want to bring them back. Now that we're in a 5-for-5 world, again, we'll talk about here in a little bit, that's one step. We're one step away from that being reality. Does a guy like Brad Spence decide to come back? And what does that do to your money pool and your numbers? With Cade Hogg, CJ, I don't think it's good riddance and move on. It's really unfortunate that things went the way they did.
Yeah, it did. And I think there's a bit of a disagreement there between the family and Texas when it came down to it, what he was worth and valued and what Texas put on the table, of course. And I think that stemmed a little bit. His cousin Hunter Hogg out of Smithson Valley down in San Antonio over the weekend had committed to Texas Tech. And I mean, as we're talking about it, the world of NIL, Jeff, well, there's also a tax when it comes to playing and committing to Texas Tech. It's called the Lubbock tax. You got to go out there, maybe pay a little bit more than what you're worth to make sure that kids will commit to Lubbock, commit to living in Lubbock and Texas Tech over a couple of other programs, or probably some prettier destinations for campuses and universities. So I'm sure that was part of the conversation that was had between the family, making sure that coming off the Texas official visit this month that he felt valued, and evidently they believe that there was probably more money left on the table elsewhere, to which Texas did not agree to. So that's kind of the word that I'm receiving on both ends. And at this moment, that's what it looks like it is. So for Cade, again, great kid. I believe we had him on the show once or twice earlier this year. He had committed back in February, didn't visit anywhere else but Texas. So back on the market really with a fresh start entering the month of July, which is going to be the dead period. It's going to be really interesting for him to see where he ends up, what that market looks like for him.
Yeah, so Texas right now, no linebacker commits. Cade Hogg was the linebacker commit. CJ, it's been an interesting time to track this in 27. Again, you come off a cycle like you had in 26. It's probably not going to be easy to sell guys on, hey, yeah, you might have a chance to come in and play. Well, coach, looks like your linebacker room's pretty deep and pretty talented. Cade Hogg no longer in the class. Toa Satele, who Texas liked a lot, he has since committed to Oregon. Jarrell Bridges, though, CJ, it's a guy, the Houston commit that Texas could be moving on, so we'll see what happens at linebacker. We'll talk about that throughout the show. And I'd love to stay on this topic a little longer, but man, we got super chats coming in. We got it's flying everywhere, so let's go ahead and get to it. Rocky P coming through with the super chat. Thank you, Rocky P, for the super chat. Said, I'm a fan of 5 for 5 except for the age start. I feel like if people have eligibility, they should be allowed a chance at playing. We wouldn't have Quan Cosby with this rule. That does eliminate the pro baseball for multiple years, and then you can come back like what happened with Quan. CJ, if I'm understanding the rule right, you can please feel free to correct me if I'm butchering this. The age restriction is if your clock doesn't start by the school year following your 19th birthday, no matter what, that's when your clock starts. If there's one school, CJ, or maybe a couple, that should be really upset with this, I don't think BYU's probably too happy with this, because if a guy goes on an LDS mission for a couple of years, then he loses a year to no fault of his own just because he was on a mission. So I think there's a couple, programs maybe where guys will take an LDS mission where maybe this doesn't sit well, but overall, that's where we're at with. Overall, though, I've wanted this for a long time, CJ. You eliminate waivers and medical red shirts and hardships and all that stuff. It's just, hey, 5 years to play 5. That's what you got. If you get it, great. Take advantage. If not, then oh well.
Yeah, no, I love this rule. And Rocky, I understand, the frustration or maybe some unknowns about what it means for the beginning of it. But again, college sports shouldn't be about watching 25, 26, and 27-year-olds compete. So for me, making sure that that's 5 years to play your 5 or 5 academic years to play your 5 years of sports, I think that's fantastic for all college athletics. It is unfortunate that you won't have the Brandon Whedon stories. You wouldn't have the Quan Cosby stories. But to me, that's a drop in the bucket for what the greater good of the sport will end up being or will receive in this is that, hey, college sports remains for kids that are college aged. And that was really the big fuss, I believe, whenever all of this was starting. I look at TJ Finley, Jeff, the guy who we basically named the portal after, going to 6 schools in basically 5 years and sitting there saying, well, how does this kid still have eligibility? If he's not buying into a single program at any point in his career, what are we even doing with all of this? I think this is a great step in the right direction. And I think, again, when it comes to red shirts, medical red shirts, especially, I know that we had that conversation on the board. Look, you were basically going to get 4 years plus a medical red shirt if you were lucky enough to receive that waiver. Now you get it built into your 5 for 5. So I think, again, very, very, very positive step in the right direction for college athletics across the board.
So Y Block and Rocky P both mentioned here, it says BYU Y Block says BYU has an exemption in this rule. And Rocky P says religious, military, and if someone becomes pregnant, those are exemptions to the rule. So I hadn't read it that far. That's the case. I stand corrected. So if you've got, I would figure you would, for this to get through, CJ, you would have to have some kind of religious or service academy, some kind of exemption of that. So hey, props to that. So yeah, I'm all for it. Now you don't. I like the fact that they fixed, even going to the 4-game redshirt rule was better than what we had. And when they made the waiver, hey, you can play in 4 games in the regular season, but you can play in the bowl game or a conference championship game or a playoff game. I like that. It's like a lot of things with the NCAA. We've kind of baby stepped our way to where we probably should have been all along, but now we're there. So, 5 for 5 is a good thing as far as I'm concerned.
I totally agree. It is funny because you kind of have to, crack the door each and every time that there's a step in the right direction. Make sure, okay, do we still like this? Because we want to go all the way. We want to open this thing all the way up, but you got to see it step by step. I do want to ask you this because I thought this was a fun debate earlier on Twitter, Jeff. What do you do with records set and career longevity records, career starts, career yards, touchdowns for 5 for 5? Do you put maybe a little asterisk on that, knowing that, hey, for really the entirety of the sport, players had 4 years for their eligibility?
I think you'll just have to, I don't even think you have to put an asterisk next to it. I just think, what I like that Texas does, and like the football record books, even the basketball record books, I mean, it lists the years you played there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just look at it and start adding it up, it's like, well, this guy played 5 years, so it's going to stand to reason why he rushed for more yards than Bijan Robinson or Earl Campbell or
Let me use my eyes and ears here.
Yeah, whatever the case is. No, and it's funny too, because we ran into this during when we had post-pandemic eligibility, where guys basically the 2020 season was forgiven, like it really didn't count, whether you were a Pac-12 team that played 4 games or Texas State, I think, was either the only or one of the only FBS schools that year that played 12 games. Like they managed to play a full regular season. So no matter whether you were on the one end of the spectrum or the other, it didn't count. And I remember talking to Cameron Dicker about this when he was debating whether to come back or not. And I said, hey, if you come back, like you're going to be the all-time leading scorer in the history of this program.
Yeah.
I'm like, you'll pass Ricky. And he said, yeah, but I'll have done it in 5 years, so it's not really the same. Which, hey, I respect it. I appreciated that.
Fair.
It's worked out for Cameron Dicker. So it's one. Here's the really interesting thing, and we'll get to the recruiting stuff here in just a second. We'll get back to recruiting. But NIL and rev share makes a really good point that I want to make sure we hit on here. It says, does NIL plus rev share money pay more than WNBA money for Madison Booker to come back to Texas for the 27-28 season? Those are the discussions, CJ, that are going to be really interesting. Football and men's basketball, they're their own entity. They're their own animals. It's a whole different ball of wax. But I would imagine, it's probably going to be enough to where she'll really have to sit down, crunch the numbers, and make a decision on that.
To me, I would say that answer would be absolutely. And I think you'd see that at the softball level, volleyball, absolutely, women's basketball. I think even to a degree, I think you can get in that conversation, Jeff, with some college baseball players too. Basketball, probably not, unless you're going to have the conversation of, okay, am I in the world of an international prospect or a late fringe draft pick in general? Because, I mean, as we're talking about, the NBA draft is going on right now. Some of these guys will be signing upwards of $60 million this evening. So good luck competing with that. But I do think across all sports, you're going to be having the conversation of, okay, if you were an all-conference level player, all-American level player, if you want to prolong your playing days by one additional year before getting more guaranteed money at the next professional step in your career, it's probably worth that conversation to have it if some of that money is there at the college level. I would absolutely agree.
And I'll just say NIL and rev share. So where the kind of the cutoff is, I asked, can Reese Atwood and Leanne Good come back too? LOL. Just in case anybody was wondering, no, they can't. So this wouldn't be like in men's basketball, like Tremont Mark couldn't be like, I'll get another year. Or Jordan Pope wants another year. Like, no, we're not there, but it is going to pose some really interesting questions, like you said, CJ, for really kind of the big 3 women's sports, for volleyball, women's basketball, and softball. It's going to be really interesting. I think for men's basketball and football, it's a wash. And then baseball, heck, until there's a new ratified collective bargaining agreement in Major League Baseball, I don't even want to speculate or guess on what may or may not happen. So yeah, it's
lockout 2027.
It's a fool's errand to do otherwise. All right, let's go ahead and get to thank one of our sponsors right now. Mention our first sponsor. How about our lead sponsor for the Tuesday Night Livestream? Shout out to Andy Ludicky and My Perfect Franchise. If you're stuck in the corporate rat race with 2 weeks of PTO and no control over the money you can make or your schedule in general, just call Andy. He'll take you through a process to help you find a business that'll fit your skill sets and your financial goals. Franchise ownership is something that's not for everybody, but if you've got a desire to take control of your destiny, call Andy or email him at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. Again, that's andy@myperfectfranchise.net. And a huge shout out and thank you to Andy Ludicky and My Perfect Franchise for sponsoring the Tuesday Night Livestream here on Texas Football. All right, CJ, let's go ahead and talk some recruiting. The good stuff that happened today. The rare double boom on a Monday, CJ. Texas gets a couple of verbal commitments. Let's start with Tyler Alexander, since that one happened this morning. For the record, this was one of I work with Jerry Hamilton, and I lose track of how many highs Jerry has out there. But this was one of them. Tyler Alexander was one of them. CJ, no matter what you think of where he's ranked or who has him rated where, I'm at the point when it comes to defensive linemen, I'm going to trust Kenny Baker's evals. And now that he's back at Texas, I'm dang sure going to trust Will Muschamp's evals. What do you think of Tyler Alexander? Anytime you can get big athletic guys to come anywhere, if you could pull them out of the state of Florida, probably off to a pretty good start.
Yeah, look, first and foremost, rare double bang. Feel like Mike Breen up here. First time, or double boom. Oh, I messed up the words there. Point being, first time since July 15th of last year where Texas had James Johnson and Tyler Atkinson commit on the same day. It's a fun day, right? Even with some of the negative news that we talked about earlier, your class certainly got better this afternoon. And Jeff, I absolutely agree with you. No one offers – you don't have 40 offers if you're a bad football player. You just don't. And you start looking around at some of the teams that Texas beat out to land Tyler Alexander. Those guys produce big-time defensive linemen. I love the way that this class is shaping up at the moment. You know, you have Kasai Curry in the class right now. I think you have a fantastic trajectory for filling out that defensive line spot too. And again, I understand we can talk about linebacker here in a minute, but the focus is defensive line. Tyler Alexander is a stud. Had glowing remarks about his time on campus. I know Hank and Jerry were at the airport this weekend getting to meet with him, but this is a big win for Texas. You dip into the Sunshine State once more. Now that interior haul, Jeff, I think is looking very special.
Yep. And, it's interesting too. The last time a couple cycles ago, you went interior defensive lineman. You went one from Florida, one from California. When you went to California and got Josiah Sharma, and then you went down into Florida and got Myron Charles. So, and CJ, again, the great thing I think right now with Texas defensive linemen is you don't need guys unless they're just that good, just right off the bat. You don't need those guys to come in and give you a lot of snaps. Like they've got to, as hard as it is to do in the NIL and portal era, like they've got a nice little pipeline going to where, hey, even if Alex January has a big year and goes pro, okay, now in 2027, now you've had Josiah Sharma and Myron Charles just kind of baking in the oven for a while, and now you'll get to turn them loose and then do that with a James Johnson and just kind of keep it going. So I really dig this move, getting Tyler Alexander.
Yeah, no, that's a big win. Again, in Texas, building from the middle out. They've obviously recruited cornerback very well. But look, linebacker safety, I think, is where you look at next, saying, okay, where do the chips lie? Kind of wrapping up this 2027 class. But Alexander, Curry, to me, are fantastic. Now, what can Texas do with a Jason Johnson out of Atascocita? What can they do with a Marcus Fakatu out of Sierra Canyon as well, the teammate of Kasai Curry? Those are two other big fish on the board that I'm looking at, saying, okay, that's how you can really put the cherry on top of what, in my opinion, is a very strong tandem of defensive linemen.
Not getting ahead of myself, but that would be a heck of a 4-man haul for your interior D-line class if you can get it. So, again, Tyler Alexander out of the state of Florida. It's funny, CJ, Benjarvius Shoemaker is another guy that was on Texas radar, committed to Ole Miss. And there was a lot of buzz with Alexander in Colorado. And, he commits to Texas. I don't know, that was like – it felt like minutes after Tyler Alexander announces he's going to Texas, that BenJarvie Shoemaker flips from Ole Miss to Colorado after he said he'd shut it down and it was Ole Miss all the way. I'm just maybe with Tyler Alexander picking Texas, maybe some funds, some resources opened up for Colorado to go make a push for BenJarvie Shoemaker.
Yeah, that timeline, that's one of those OG timelines where you just sit there and say, wait, what? How did we get to this conclusion? How did we get to this end of the story? For folks unfamiliar, BenJarvie Shoemaker took an official visit to Texas in the middle of the month, had been previously committed to Ole Miss. Well, on Monday, he said, we're shut down. Everything's done. I'm not deciding anymore. Originally, it was anticipated that Texas and Ole Miss was where he was going to make a final decision. Monday, he posts, I'm shut down. This morning, we wake up right after Tyler Alexander commits to Texas, and BenJarvie Shoemaker has flipped to Colorado. So, Jeff, you're absolutely correct. Colorado had been dead set focused on landing at least one of Tyler Alexander, Shoemaker, or Mitchell Turner, who, again, Mitchell Turner ended up this afternoon committing to Ole Miss. It's a full carousel at the moment.
And I think everybody's probably feeling like, hey, we got our guy, no matter between those three schools, ended up with the three guys. Maybe not in the order they thought it was going to go, but I think they're probably all pretty happy with their guy. Let's go ahead. Kyron Brown, CJ, was the other boom today. Let's go ahead. We'll watch some Kyron Brown huddle while we take this super chat from Cisco Diaz. Cisco, thank you as always for the super chats and for the comments. Cisco asked, how involved is Sark in these current defensive recruitments compared to when PK was the DC? I assume Sark gets to sit back and let Muschamp do his thing. I think the part where I would push back, CJ, is Sark is just one of those head coaches that wants to be as hands-on as he can be. I think what's really different is Will Muschamp is so involved in the evaluation process now and kind of the initial, really nitty-gritty grassroots part of recruiting that, quite frankly, it just wasn't PK's deal. That's the big difference. But, I feel like Sark has been really good about reading recruitments, offensive guys, defensive guys, whatever. If he feels he needs to get in there and help out, then he will. But I don't know on the back end, so to say, CJ, where we're talking about here, that Sark is any more or less involved than he previously was.
No, look, he's the one that signs off on every recruit Texas takes, right? Every commitment gets his signature. That's on the offensive line. That's in the defensive back room. That's obviously at quarterback. It's every single position that Texas finds a commitment from. Sark is sitting there and said, okay, I like him. Green light. So the big change from PK to Will Muschamp is in the evaluation that you mentioned, right? Going out in the spring and in the winter and seeing these kids in person, right? That wasn't necessarily what PK was known to do. In fact, he didn't do that too often. Texas would send Chris Gilbert. They would send a number of they'd send Brandon Harris out on the road in place of PK to just kind of keep that camaraderie and that relationship growing while PK basically evaluated from home. So for Muschamp, you get to see the guys in person. He gets to green light them in person. That's a big change. But at the end of the day, when these kids take official visits, the last thing that they do before they leave campus is they sit down with a meeting with Steve Sarkisian and their family, the position coach, coordinator, and they say, all right, trip's over. Let's talk about where we are, where things sit with us, where things sit with you, and what the process of committing or exploring looks like moving forward. So Sark always sits down with these guys at the very end of the day, and that's no different with new commit Kyron Brown as well.
Yeah, Kyron Brown, the first Amarillo Palo Duro product to come into the program since Montreal Meander way back in 2013. Ooh. Same position, too, wide receiver. CJ, I don't know if you share the opinion, but I know, Hank has talked about this, Jordan has talked about this, Jerry's talked about this, pretty much our entire recruiting staff. It's like, hey, the more I watch Kyron Brown and really dig into who he is as a prospect, the more I like him. You share that opinion?
Yeah, I do. It might be a bit of a stretch here, but when Josh Moore was really lighting it up at Yoakum, I see a little bit of that. Just a quick wiggle off the line, strong hands. I think there's more juice in the legs, if you will, for Brown. Obviously, he's a two-time state finalist in the 110-meter hurdles. You don't do that at any classification without being able to run, jump, have that hip flexibility and explosion. So I like that. I think the hands, Jeff, is really where I'm surprised, because most times you hear about a track athlete, you say, okay, the way he creates separation is just being faster, quicker, a little bit more elusive than everybody else on the field. He makes a lot of contested catches, and I think that's where I look at it and say, okay, I like the makeup of this kid right here, and I think it's a solid take for Texas as their wide receiver 2 or 3 in this class.
Yeah, and look, it was a big weekend for wide receivers on campus. You know, Kyron Brown's a part of that mix. CJ, I think people might forget, at least I do. I mean, you're so wrapped up in hanging on to Easton Royal, and can you pull off the Easton Royal Monson sales double? Man, with just Kyron Brown and Bryson Thrower, that's a really good 2-man wide receiver class. Easton Royal makes it a really, really good trio. And I think the kind of the carrot dangling in front of all these guys is, you've got the potential to come into this Texas program after a season where there could be massive turnover at wide receiver. I think everybody watching this is hoping that Cam Coleman and Ryan Wingo and Emmett Mosley all have the kinds of years where it would benefit them to maximize their stock and go to the NFL after this year. And then other than Jermaine Bishop, CJ, at that point, you're pretty much starting over at wide receiver. So for a young, talented guy at that position, there's a really good opportunity for you to come in and make an impact.
Yeah, 100%. This is probably the funniest part of his highlights, Jeff, is he's got 6 sacks in 5 games. But you're absolutely right. And that's why this year, for a guy like Khalil Lockett, for a guy like Chris Stewart, Cohen Brown, if you're able to get on the field early, you have to make the most of your opportunities, knowing that next year it's probably going to be Easton Royal, Jermaine Bishop, and then who, right? So that's the big point. Yeah. There's some fun highlights in here when you get to the weeds back in the end of these things. But point being, for these guys that see what could be ahead, and I think Texas will obviously be very aggressive in the portal to go find a wide receiver after this year, should everything go according to plan. But there's going to be opportunities here. What do you do right now to make the most of it and make sure that you're in the good graces of the coaches moving forward?
Yeah, Coach Scott 619 says, do we have any hope for Khalil Lockett or Daly McCutcheon? Absolutely, there's hope for both those guys. But to be at the point they need to be by the end of the year for the staff to have an idea of what they need in the portal to that position, I just wonder, CJ, are they going to get enough opportunities to show what they can do? Especially like Khalil Lockett, and it's nothing against Daly McCutcheon at all, but Khalil Lockett's the guy I really feel bad for, because it really felt like, hey, he's got a chance to take off this spring, and then he ends up having the injury and the surgery to miss a spring ball, and then Sterling Burkhalter ends up getting no snaps, and he's probably entered the summer ahead on the internal depth chart ahead of Khalil Lockett just coming off the injury. So yeah, there's definitely hope for both those guys, CJ, but they're really going to have to put in the work to get the kind of snaps they need to get to show the coaches, yeah, you don't need to go into the portal to get a receiver. You can count on me.
Yeah. And again, I find myself enamored by just the ability to get off the edge here for a wide receiver, but that goes and just speaks a little bit more about that explosiveness, right? That ability to burst off the line of scrimmage that, we've obviously talked about a lot when it comes to the athleticism, the long jump, or the high jumping, etc. He's going to be a fun player to watch in my eyes.
I'm enamored by the idiot OU fan in the chat that thinks they're making salient points. Like I'm losing IQ points following some of that. So thank you, chat, for taking care of that. At any rate, we'll take your recruiting questions, whatever you got. Let's thank another one of our sponsors, though. Mark Saunders is the long-running sponsor of the Recruiting Breakdown here on the channel. And when it comes to protecting all your stuff, wouldn't it be great to have one place that protects it all? Here's some good news. Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders is the only insurance agent you need. Everything from your home, your car, and your boat to your motorcycle, RV, and ATV. If you're looking for someone local to the Round Rock or Austin area, give Mark a call at 512-218-8571. Are you in good hands? With more than 35 years of experience, you'll be in good hands with Texas alum Mark Saunders. Again, call Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders' office today at 512-218-8571. 512-218-8571. And a big thank you to Mark Saunders, not just for sponsoring the Recruiting Breakdown here on the channel, but for sponsoring the Tuesday night live stream here at On Texas Football. CJ, I don't know if that includes domiciles on wheels as are run rampant in the state of Oklahoma, but hey, give Mark's office a call. Maybe he can help you out getting that thing insured. So whatever you need, I'm sure he can take care of it. CJ, we were going to talk about 5 for 5, maybe a little more in depth, but Rocky P had the super chat. CJ, is there anything else in terms of 5 for 5 that is top of mind for you? You think we're good to move on to the next?
Probably good. I saw someone commented earlier about Arch, his ability to come back. Look, Arch would have had an additional year already because of his freshman year redshirt. So the 5 for 5 doesn't necessarily account to him. He would have already been in a position to have stuck around for a 5th year. Now, speaking of the Mannings and Arch and the Manning family, Jerry Hamilton and I will be down in Thibodaux, Louisiana, one of my favorite places in the world later this week, Jeff, for the Manning passing academy, excuse me. So looking forward to that, looking to hearing from Arch. I'm sure there will be some conversations or questions about Arch, his future. Would he explore that 3rd year as a starting quarterback, as it's been well noted that Peyton and Eli both did in their respective college careers? Right now, I still lean very unlikely that we see Arch Manning in 2027, but you never know.
Yeah, it's a different world than now than it was 20 years ago, 25 years ago, almost 30 years ago when Peyton was coming out and 20 for Eli. And look, you have a rookie wage scale now, but still there's a difference between NIL money and top of the first round NFL draft money. Now, I'm not saying financially that's it, but the financial risk you take by coming back for another year, where after this year, Arch will be over, that third, he'll be close to, I don't know where he is in career starts right now. What is he at 15, I think, right now? Yeah. So he should be close to or around that 30 start mark, which is ideally what NFL franchises are looking for. To me, CJ, like, I get it. Like, we can have fun with Sark saying it in that Kay Adams interview. Like, oh, yeah, we won't be surprised if Arch comes back or whatever. I think if you're just putting a lot of stock into that and just hanging your hat on that, well, Sark said it, like, yeah, you probably don't hold your breath. Like, if it happens, great, but that shouldn't be the expectation right now.
Yeah, Sark said it ahead of 2 5-stars at the wide receiver position officially visiting. I think you might be laying a little breadcrumbs as to, hey, guys, Monsoon Sales, the Eastern Royal, if to make things a little bit more enticing for the University of Texas, there's a chance Arch Manning comes back for your freshman year. Think about that. That's kind of where I looked at it, Jeff, and said, you know what? I see what he's doing.
And Jay Kells mentions, he said, if the Jets have the number 1 pick, Arch will be back.
That's actually not crazy.
That I will buy into that theory more than just this is what the Manning family does, and Arch will play 4 full seasons at Texas, blah, blah, blah. Like, that to me makes a lot of sense, because when we talk about your future, your football future, yeah, exactly. Like, you want to understand, like, what kind of organization are you going into? Are you going to an organization that you feel like is going to develop you, is going to give you a chance to win, is going to put the resources, and is going to be functional enough? Like, I think it's really interesting now I don't know if you've heard of CJ, but I think it was a Bussin' with the Boys interview that Eli did, where this long after the fact, like, now he's just now revealing, like, why he didn't want to go to San Diego. And he talked about, like, the pre-draft workout and dinner that they had in New Orleans, where, like, the coaches and the ownership and the front office, they're all arguing with each other and it's disorganized. Like, there's no way I'm going to play for this team. Like, they can't agree on, like, what to do at dinner. Like, there's no way I'm playing for this team. So yeah, it's great. And I like the fact too that Eli didn't want to play in San Diego, but at the time, Archie's like, yeah, put the heat on me. I'll take responsibility for it. So shout out to the Manning family. Yeah, exactly. We've seen this before. So that's my long-winded way of me saying, CJ, I will much rather buy into, if fill in the blank franchise has the number 1 pick, Arch could reserve the right to come back, rather than, oh yeah, he's going to do the right thing and come back to Texas for another year.
Right. That I sit there as well. I'm trying to make the point real quick.
No, you can go for it, because Stephen Houston says the thing is Arch is either going to get drafted by the Jets, Browns, or some other horrible organization. Regardless, when he comes out, the Mannings won't be able to force their way somewhere this time. I'll say this about the Browns. The Browns might be the organization where I would take exception to that, because, and I don't pretend to know the in-depth relationship, but the fact that Jimmy Haslam, the Browns owner, is a massive Tennessee donor, the relationship with him, I'm sure he and Peyton Manning have met and talked. I don't know the details of that relationship. But CJ, I'm sure there's enough rapport there for the family to feel like, okay, we at least know the guy running the thing, and at least could have a good beat on like where the Browns are going if that's Arch's destination.
Right. I was going to go back to yes, OU sucks here. The comparison between first round money for Cleveland or whoever's at the top of the conversation here in the NFL draft next year versus Texas fourth year NIL money. Look, I think it's been reported Arch is around that $5 to $7 million in NIL, and I don't believe any of that's actually directly coming from the University of Texas or the rev share pool at the moment. So could that then be tacked on to retain or add some, extra incentives? Perhaps. I was looking at Fernando Mendoza, who went 1-1 this year to the Las Vegas Raiders. He's getting $38 million guaranteed as a signing bonus, $14 million a year over 4 years with a fifth-year option. I'm not a great quick math guy there, but over 5 years, it's about $72 million that will be in the bank for Fernando Mendoza, with $14 to $15 million in year one. If Arch is in the conversation to go top 5, it's very unlikely that Texas will be able to put something on paper or on the table to even match that. Now, if he falls down to the bottom half of the first round or even the second round, that's when the conversation gets louder, because I think you're looking at Jackson Dart, the quarterback of the New York Giants at the moment, who's right in the range of about $6 to $8 million annually. So that's where things will come. That, of course, would then say, hey, if Arch is barely a first-round pick, the season probably didn't go that well to begin with. So I almost don't even want to sit here and conversate about it.
I don't want to think about what our fall here at OTF would be like if that's the case. But no, I mean, you're right, CJ. Like I said, there's a difference between Texas NIL money and top of the first round money. And plus, it's starting that clock, because while there is no rookie wage scale now, getting to that second contract. And by that point, by the time Arch Manning is ready for his second NFL contract, if all goes well and he's in line for like one of those max type deals, who knows what the total value, what the guaranteed money, what it is for franchise quarterbacks at that point. Like, we're already in astronomical numbers. I mean, it started with the Deshaun Watson deal and it's just kind of gone on from there. But man, you're talking. So the quicker you can start that clock to get there, I think the better off you be. But hey, if anybody wants, we can. I think Matt Schnell says if Arch wins a Natty this year, then return his NIL will at least double. I think if Arch wins a national championship at Texas, CJ, I think, hey, and Arch can't, if Arch Manning delivers a national championship to Texas, Arch can then go and be the best NFL quarterback that he wants to be at that point, because that means I still like to think of that crystal football sitting in DKR, but it'll be whatever we're calling whatever apparatus we're calling the CFP trophy. As long as that's in-house, Arch can go do whatever he wants at that point. And absolutely. I will cheer him on like I do the other lifetime Longhorns in the NFL. We've got a super chat here. Let's get to this. Billy Wood 7372 with the super chat. Thank you, Billy. Says the SEC is a line of scrimmage league. I've always said it's college football's ultimate line of scrimmage league. Is our starting 5-0 line cemented in game one, or is it rinse and repeat like the first 6 games of last year? Looking to figure it out. Hook 'em. Thank you, Billy, for the super chat. I do think, CJ, there's going to need to be some time for this group to gel together, to get some experience playing together, to get some reps together. So I wouldn't expect it to be clean right out of the gate. But I do think from a personnel standpoint, there's no question you're better. Even with losing a guy like DJ Campbell to the NFL as a first-team All-SEC guy, there's no question from a personnel standpoint you're better now than you were last year.
Yeah, I'm absolutely there with you. And, it's going to be interesting to see how quickly they do gel, because, again, look, you didn't get Lawrence Seymour in spring football. So you're going to have fall camp and then week 1 to get prepared for Ohio State. But the talent should be more improved. I went through it earlier today in our OTF Ask Us Anything post this morning. The number of starts, or the number of snaps from last year's team to this year's team, Jeff, increased by about 2,000. Additionally, only 2 players a year ago had more than 350 career snaps. So far right now going into the 2026 season, the projected lineup with Seymour in that left guard spot, every single player has at least 775. So almost double that career snap total from a year ago, and that's everybody on the board. So I'm expecting a much more talented offensive line. But again, we're just talking about it. And that's what it's going to be until we see it. It should be better, but until you absolutely see it, kind of have to sit here and tap the brakes a little bit.
I want to get your thoughts on this too, because we had our OTF, our sideline debate over the weekend. Which former 5-star prospect has the most to prove? This question right here and this topic, that's why I went with Brandon Baker, because if the right side of that offensive line isn't up to snuff and Brandon Baker isn't really good, like basically playing like at an all SEC level, at least like makes the kind of strides you would expect to see from someone with a full year of starting experience in the SEC under their belt. If he's not making those strides, then none of the other stuff really matters. It's going to be hard to run the football. It's going to be Arch running for his life. Just snap at the Arch and hope something good happens. Like, that's where the offense is going to be if this offensive line isn't markedly better than it was last year.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot, again, because I think his skill set suits more towards that interior spot, Jeff, at the right guard. I think Brandon Baker is probably number one. I think Xavier Filsaime is another that you sit there and say, okay, it's time to play like that 5-star guy. Brandon Baker could go pro after this year, and I think we'd all sit there and say, hey, that was a great success for a kid coming in 3 years in college and going pro. Would he be on your draft board right now, Jeff? Because I don't.
Not right now. Not right now.
But I sure hope that in about 6 months we sit here and say, yeah, that was a no-brainer, right?
Yeah. And look, the thing with him is, it's one of those deals like he's at guard. Guard's not a premium position. Does he come back to Texas for one more year and kick back out to tackle and try to prove his NFL value there? Or is he content with like a second or third round grade and go take your chances? I don't know. But yeah, if Brandon Baker plays at that level where he's got a decision to make, probably was a much better year for the offensive line. Yes. Really good year for the offense. Stephen Houston mentions one of the names you threw out there, CJ. Jonah Williams and Xavier Filsaime have the most to prove. It's guys with varying levels of things to prove. And I wish I had one of those. It's been X number of days since we talked about Jonah Williams. That would be wiped out and have a 0 next to it. Because for Jonah, it's just, he's got to be healthy. He's got to be healthy and on the field, and then we'll see what he can do. But man, there's 2 sports on the 40 acres right now where a decent part of their futures hinges on, is Jonah Williams healthy, and what level of productivity can you get from a healthy Jonah Williams?
That was a part. Blake Monroe posted some fantastic baseball nuggets earlier today, Jeff. And some of the questions in that conversation were, okay, well, what's still a priority? Is outfield still a priority? And to me, it's absolutely yes. If you're Jim Schlossnagle, if you're Steve Sarkisian right now, look, I think you hope that Jonah can be a plus for you, but I don't think you can bank on that moving forward. And so while the baseball portal is up and running and it's in the heat, I think you almost have to sit there and plan for a Texas lineup that won't have Jonah Williams in it. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting there saying, did we do enough, knowing the history of players X, Y, and Z on the roster and thinking it would be any different? That would be a disservice.
Yeah, you need another outfielder because Maddox Mansour going into the portal takes away an outfield option. And yeah, I mean, if Jonah's there, great, but it's at the point where, and look, Jonah's at the point, different scenarios, right? But it's to the point where Mac Brown was at one time separately with Bo Scaife and Jordan Shipley, where the injuries had cost them so much time. They said, you know what? If you're a part of this thing, great, but I can't count on you to be here. I can't just put that in Sharpie, be like, okay, he's here. If we've got him, great, but we can't count on him. Now, both those guys came off the injuries and ended up being hellacious players at Texas and ended up playing in the league. That's kind of where Jonah is. If he's there, it's awesome. And you feel like the upside is there for him to have legit pro potential in 2 sports. But if you're Sark or Schloss, there's no way you can count on it right now. And I do know, CJ, Texas is their outfield is definitely a priority. Yeah. Even with Sawyer Solitaria committing over the weekend to transfer from Kent State and Anthony Pack coming back, outfield very much is a priority for Texas. Probably still looking for another infielder. And you've got your catching situation sorted out now with Ian Armstrong. So you went and got one of the best catchers in the portal. And then you got to figure out, this pitching situation. Here's something though, too, that I was thinking about, CJ, with the assumption is, and we've been assuming that Thomas Burns, Schloss has indicated, and come out and said it, he's indicated Burns is going to move on. Hayden LaFew is one of those guys that like could go either way. If you're uncertain of where you're going to be drafted with a potential lockout looming, like, do you just hedge your bets and be like, you know what? I'm going to like, don't draft me. Don't draft me. And I'll go back to Texas for one more year.
Yeah. And that's where the beauty of NIL, rev share, and, the 5-for-5 come to play as well, is now you have, in a way, some leverage is returned back to college baseball players because of that. You can sit there, and I think all the writing is on the wall that eventually there will be a lockout. There will be some sort of renegotiation of the CBA at the MLB level, because boy, oh boy, is that a mess. But that, Jeff, I think we could have multiple shows on for weeks on end without really covering all of it. There's just so much to that. So maybe a little bit of leverage returned to the college baseball player side of things, whereas previously it was mostly all on the teams.
Well, CJ, Darius Acuff did not make it to the Little Mavericks. He's off the board. Gosh, she's talking about where basketball careers go to die. Darius Acuff going to the Kings.
They will trade him, Jeff, in 2 years, and he'll become an all-NBA player for the next 10 years.
When has a draft pick ever said, you know what, I am super pumped and excited to play for the Sacramento Kings? Maybe like when Chris Webber and Mike Bibby and Peja Stojakovic had it rolling there, maybe at that point. But I don't think anybody's ever been excited to say, hey, I'm going to – it's kind of like saying, man, I'm excited. I'm going to College Station, or I'm going to Norman. Nobody's ever said that. I don't think said I'm pumped to go to Sacramento. So, yeah, that's we'll see. The Little Mavericks are up here in a couple picks, CJ, so we'll see what they do. Until then, though, let's go ahead and thank another one of our sponsors, because this is a perfect time for me to let everyone know that this edition of On Texas Football is brought to you by Prize Picks. We're in the dog days of summer, but CJ, what do you say about the month of June?
Great month. Most underrated on the calendar.
In terms of sports, absolutely. Baseball's in full swing. You got the WNBA. We just got done with the NBA and the NHL. The World Cup is rolling. Whatever you're watching, Prize Picks adds more fun to it. Now, every possession, every at-bat, you're locked in from start to finish. You're not just watching anymore. You got a little juice in it. The best part about Prize Picks is it's easy. All you're doing is picking more or less on player stats. That's all you got to do. Just build your lineup, submit it, and you're good to go. It takes about a minute to complete that process. If you want, you can go across multiple sports with Prize Picks, or if there's one that you like, you can ride it out. Whatever fits, it's going to work. We're back on World Cup action again today. We're taking the most popular man in the soccer world, Cristiano Ronaldo, to have more than half a goal, along with England star Harry Kane to do the same. Both have multiple chances to do it. Both are star players, so we are locking that in. We're trusting our gut, and that's exactly what you do with Prize Picks. Make your picks, lock it in now. Every single moment actually means something. Prize Picks is available in all 50 states, including right here in the great state of Texas. So if you haven't jumped in yet, now is the time. Just download the app, use the code HMA, play $5, and you'll get $50 in lineups instantly. Again, download the Prize Picks app, use the code HMA, 5 get you 50. It really is that simple. And as always, please remember to play smart, play responsibly, play Prize Picks. All right, CJ, I got a super chat from Brad. Brad, K5M, thank you for the super chat. Said, I came in late today, and I don't know if this has been brought up, but I think that the 5-for-5 will lead to more athletes, especially women athletes, to leave Texas with master's degrees, which would be fantastic. Absolutely, 100%. I remember, Tope Amade saying something to the effect, CJ, when he was in school. Tope was a multiple year guy because of he redshirted and got the COVID year. Like, hey, as long as they'll let me hang out here and get as many degrees as I can. I know multiple guys at Texas that got multiple degrees. Like you had an injury or something. Like, hey, if I'm here, might as well get some school done. So yeah, an extra year to do that's definitely not a bad thing. Whereas on the flip side, there's also the guys that say, I don't really want to stick around for the extra year. I do want to leave. We saw that with Cam Williams. So goes two ways there. But if you're able to, if you're still making a pretty penny in college, might as well rack up a couple of degrees, because that will lead to even more pennies later on down the road. But for the women's side of things, Jeff, we just saw it with softball getting the commitment and signing of Issa Torres. I think it's a very attractive destination, seeing how successful the women's sports are, to play a final year. Add in the educational aspect, and you're looking at the best of all worlds there, financially, educationally, and on the field. And granted, it was again different deals, but I ask Rory Harmon or Shea Holly if they have any regrets about being at Texas a little longer than they probably initially planned. Sure. Probably not. Probably don't have any regrets. So yeah, and again, like to Brad's point, Brad, thank you for the super chat. Like, women's sports is different because they don't have the high dollar contracts waiting for them in the pro leagues like you do with football and men's basketball, and to an extent baseball if you're drafted high enough to get one of those 7-figure signing bonuses. It's just a different structure. Let's go ahead and get to a couple more questions. We've gotten a lot of questions about the Brendan Sorsby. Coach Scott 619 says, any thoughts on this year's supplemental NFL draft other than the fact that it's not happening? I don't know what else there is to say. So I get you, Coach Scott. But Yblock 12 says, so since Sorsby is no longer an NCAA athlete and not accepted to the supplemental draft, can he now place bets? Sure. I guess he's free to do that to his heart's content. But CJ, it is interesting though that to see again, it's just kind of the egg on the face of the powers that be at Texas Tech to just, fight the uphill battle on that deal. And now for the NFL to say, yeah, you know what, we're not dealing with this either.
Yeah, no. It's a shame, I'll say, to not have the NFL supplemental draft. I was really looking forward to seeing and watching the results of the supplemental draft. But no, if there's one team that could really benefit from Brendan Sorsby kind of just floating for the next year, he'll be eligible for the 2027 NFL draft, which again is next May. It might just be the Houston Gamblers, Jeff.
Perhaps are they still around?
Yeah,
I don't even know, like UFL, XFL. I don't even know if they're still around. But yes, that would be apropos. I did think it was interesting too, though, looking back on it, that Tech pushed so hard for that, and just so happens we do have a year where the CFP title game is in Las Vegas. So draw conclusions to that, whatever you will. But by the way, you mentioned them, and I know this isn't the point, but man, that Houston Gamblers logo. I'm weird with my sports fandom, right? In terms of pro sports. So I'm Cowboys, Mavs, Astros. I'm weird like that. I can get into it, but we don't have enough time. But I'm not like partial to Houston, but man, that Houston Gamblers logo, dude, that is a sick logo. I love that Houston Gamblers logo.
Where they integrated the G with the Texas State.
Yeah. Matthew. Yeah, there you go, Matthew. Thank you for that. Yeah, I love the Houston Gamblers logo.
That's
just
well done.
It was the original USFL was before my time, but going back and watching, the clips I can find in games, man, Jim Kelly slinging it all over the place in the Astrodome wearing that Houston Gamblers logo. Dude, that is awesome. I want to get to this, CJ, because Paxton941, Paxton, thank you so much for your participation in the chat tonight. He said this a couple times, so I think this is worth mentioning. This is Paxton's opinion. He said, is the kid, or he's asking a question, said, is the kid out of Palo Duro faster and bigger than Brendan Thompson? We're talking about Kyron Brown.
He's bigger. He's not faster.
Yeah, Brendan Thompson is like, is it a stretch to say world-class fast?
Yeah, borderlines. I mean, if we're calling Eastern Royal 10-1-7, I mean, Brendan Thompson ran 10-2-2. Yeah. So right in that same conversation.
Yeah. Definitely bigger.
He is
not faster, though.
Kyron Brown is bigger, though. I think that's well known. Where you'll also see more of an athleticism boost is in the leaping ability, right? That's something that I think Brown holds a little bit more of than Thompson. But again, that straight line speed, and you saw that this past year at Mississippi State. You get the ball in his hands, you allow him to play in that, that spacey offense, and just say, hey, you have one man to beat, run by him. He can do that very easily. Brown, I don't think I would classify it as world-class speed. Not yet.
No, and even going back and watching those defensive highlights, I love that as a wide receiver because that tells me the guy knows how to play to and through contact. Like, that's what I love about, that's what I loved about Lil Jordan Humphrey. Like, it was so – the fact that he's still in the NFL, surprise. Even though I was a huge Lil Jordan Humphrey fan, the fact that he's still in the league cashing checks surprises me a little bit. But he was so unconventional as a running back, but when he moved to wide receiver, I'm like, I love it. And it's no secret, CJ, why he was such a good screen guy, because for those guys, it's almost like a long handoff. This is like getting a toss play in high school. Just kind of weave your way through traffic and be big and be physical. I love wide receivers that played running back or linebacker or had another position like that in high school where they actually had to be physical. That means, especially as much of the screen game is prevalent in Sark's offense, I dig that about Kyron Brown.
Yeah, and I feel like you don't see that as much on the offensive side, where it was guys playing both ways. Typically, you see it with, an Anthony Hill, Raheem Biles playing running back and then sticking to linebacker, and just you see it more on that side. But knowing that in your back pocket you have a guy that's willingly gone out and looked for contact or willingly put his hat on another ball carrier, I think is fantastic, and you just don't see it as often anymore.
No, guy, that just lets you know, man, more often than not, those guys are just ball players, just ball players at the end of the day. Quandre Diggs was like that. Jordan Whittington was like that. Adrian Phillips, I can keep going on and on, but yeah, I love guys like that understand, at least in high school, get a taste of being physical and playing to and through contact. All right, one more time, let's thank our lead sponsor here on the Tuesday night live stream and give a shout out to Andy Ludicky and My Perfect Franchise. Do you want control over your own destiny? Maybe franchise ownership is right for you. If you do, if you think that's the case, then call Andy Ludicky. Andy's an expert at placing people in the right franchise that fit your strengths and your finances. Franchise ownership isn't for everyone, but if you have a desire to take control of your destiny, call Andy or email him at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. Again, that's andy@myperfectfranchise.net. And a huge shout out to Andy Ludicky and My Perfect Franchise for sponsoring the Tuesday night live stream here at On Texas Football. I want to give a shout out right now, CJ, to everybody in the chat holding it down and fighting with the few OU trolls that managed to get into the chat. We haven't even had to say much on that tonight because chat has been all over it. So I do appreciate our chat ganging up on the trolls. It is much appreciated. I'll tell you what, the trolls should be thankful that it's the Tuesday crew and it's not that Wednesday night crew. Because the Wednesday night crew in that situation, they may get us in trouble with the folks at YouTube, but thankfully, the Tuesday night crew has a little more decorum than the Wednesday crew.
It's a little bit more subdued tonight, which I appreciate, which is great because the Mavs are about to do something really stupid, I fear, now that they're on the clock at number 9. So, all right.
Tends to happen. Didn't like seeing Kingston Flemings come off the board, so looks like, all the guards that I preferred are gone, so we'll see what the little Mavericks do. In the meantime,
let's go get that 27-year-old Michigan point guard, right?
We got two more super chats to get to before we're done. Billy Woods with another super chat. Thank you, Billy. Said, is James Simon going to see the field? He's a good running back. I'd put him in the Daly McCutcheon, Khalil Lockett boat, CJ. Like there's something there, but in a backfield where there's several guys in front of him, is he going to get enough opportunities to show the staff what they probably want to see from him before they've got to make a decision on how he factors into the future?
Somebody earlier commented about Brennan Thompson waiting multiple years, 8 catches in 2 years, transferred to Oklahoma, transferred again to Mississippi State, turned himself into a 4th-round pick. I hope it doesn't come to that point for McCutcheon, Lockett, or Simon, but sometimes you just have to wait your turn and develop, right? It's not easy. It's not fun. It's not ever what anyone wants to hear, but that room is very talented. And I think, again, with the emergence of Derek Cooper joining that conversation, and we'll see where Texas ends up after Noah Roberts and potentially another running back in the 2027 class, you just kind of have to sit there and bide your time until it's about that time for you to take the reins and make the most of the opportunity.
Shocker. Dusty May gets hired, and
I love that pick, Jack.
Mavericks take a Michigan player. Okay. We'll probably talk about that off the air. But no, going back to the James Simon question, actually, there's a video up on the channel right now if you guys want to check it out, where myself and Jerry and Hank South talking about Landon Williams-Callis. Like, there's a reason, like, the staff loves Noah Roberts, and Noah Roberts was their guy, and Noah Roberts is a fantastic running back. But the reason why you're still pursuing Landon Williams-Callis and why you need to figure out here pretty quick, CJ, what James Simon can do, Raleek Brown's gone after the year. If, again, we're talking about guys, if they have the kind of year they want to have and the staff wants them to have where they have a decision, you could lose Raleek Brown and Hollywood Smothers after the year. Then at that point, you're like a James Simon transfer away from, you not only do you need 2027 to be a 2-back class, you potentially need it to be like a really good 2-back class. Otherwise, you may have to go shopping in the portal.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's, again, Texas has a fantastic running back in the boat right now. If they're able to then add Landon Williams-Callis, hey, you maybe don't have to do that. So it's going to be interesting. But if that developmental track of James Simon continues in a positive direction, that also then keeps everything in-house where Texas doesn't need to go spend money on big all-conference backs once more.
All right. Brad's got another super chat. Brad, thank you for the super chat. So looking at our football coaching staff, I see rising or solidified stars. Do I have burnt orange glasses on, or do y'all see somewhere that needs improvement? I only see us losing coaches to promotion. Yep. Right now, CJ, I've said this before. I said this when Will Muschamp was hired and kind of looking at the staff makeup of who got retained, who wasn't back. I think on the defensive staff, you've got a nice blend of some young up-and-coming guys with some veteran coaches, right? So you've got Kenny Baker, Leanna Clark, Mark Orfe, Blake Gideon, fairly young guys in the coaching profession. But in the front, you've got Kenny Baker and Leanna Clark with Johnny Nansen, who's been around a long time, and the guys coaching the secondary with Will Muschamp, who's one of the best defensive coordinators in college football in the last 2 decades. So I feel really good about the makeup of the defensive staff. The offensive staff, it's, you brought in Jabbar Jalouk. The thing I like about Sark, CJ, that he's done, we haven't seen him hold on to coaches for too long, like waiting, like, okay, is this guy going to work? Like, is this going to be a fit? He's hung on, like you think about with parting ways with Dwayne Akina after 1 year, Chad Scott after 1 year, Andre Coleman after 1 year. I mean, other than the guys like a Brendan Marion that left for a promotion or Stan Drayton left for a head coaching job, man, Sark just doesn't wait around to see like, okay, is this going to work? If he's not feeling it, like he'll make the change. I appreciate that about him. So you've got basically that mix of, a first-year guy in Jabbar Jalouk, a guy kind of like Kenny Baker on defense. Chris Jackson was a hire that probably wasn't popular at the time. That's right. Worked out. And then you've got a couple guys with Kyle Flood and Jeff Banks that have been with Sark from day one.
Basically lifers. And he does have a quick trigger when it comes to making a move if he doesn't feel like it's the right fit, right? Akina was that guy. Chad Scott this past offseason was that guy. So, look, I think Sark is obviously Pete Kwiatkowski was another one where you're sitting there looking at the defense over the last 2 years saying, hey, this is not the issue with this Texas football team, and yet that move was still made. So I think for Sark, it's all about just making sure that he feels like he has the best staff in place, and he's been no stranger to making changes should he feel like that's what's best for the program.
And I think it's different for different guys on the staff too in terms of who could be moving on. Like a guy like Kyle Flood, could Kyle Flood or Johnny Nansen or even Will Muschamp, could they go get a head coaching job if they really wanted one? If they really wanted one, yeah. But I don't know that any of those guys have aspirations to be a head coach again. I mean, Will Muschamp has said it as much like, no, I don't want to be a head coach again. Been there, done that. I think he's in his wheelhouse. He's back to just evaluating talent, coaching ball, calling defense, like doesn't have to worry about all the stuff on Sark's plate that a head coach has to worry about. I think he's at home. And then you got other guys like, for Blake Gideon or Mark Orfe or Kenny Baker or even Chris Jackson, you're probably looking at, okay, is it a play calling gig? Is it something in the NFL? Is it a head coaching job? So I like the way you put that, CJ. Some of the lifers, I think you've got a nice mix of those, and then guys that, in theory, have a ton of upward trajectory left.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. I think that is going to do it for the Tuesday night live stream. Man, that was a busy live stream. CJ, I'll give you about 30 seconds here at the end. Thoughts on what the Mavericks did in the first round of the draft tonight?
I actually like Morez Johnson. Don't know if I would have taken him at 9, but energetic, a guy that, Michigan doesn't win a national championship without him. I know that Adai Mora, I know that Yaxel, Landenberg get a lot more of the buzz. They get a lot more of the headlines. But when you find a guy that does the dirty work, that has, kind of that energy and hustle always at 100, I think that's very important in today's day and age of college basketball. And knowing that he will continue to have that light lit with his former, college head coach, I think is important. At the same time, given how all of the guards in this draft just went one right after another, it didn't make sense to draft or reach for Braden Burries or anyone like that. So I don't mind it. I don't hate it. I wouldn't say I'm over the moon for it. I think whoever drafts Nate Emmett's going to lose their job in a year and a half. So glad it's not the Mavs.
Could be the rebuilding Bucks here in a minute. I think Cisco Diaz closes it out with the best post in the chat tonight. As always on the show, we are hashtag for Craig.
Yes,
love Craig Way. Craig Way and I swapped some texts this week about having some feral hog talk. Feral hog talk was a big topic of discussion on Light the Tower back in the day.
I like that as well. And tonight we're also going to be for Matt Miller as well. We need to shout him out.
1,000%. Yes, thank you, CJ.
Devastating post that he put up on Twitter earlier today. I know he's been a friend of ours, friend of the program for a long time. He does a fantastic work for the NFL draft over at ESPN. Terrifying car accident. Ended up having an appendage amputated. Very, very sad, sobering news. So for Matt Miller, if you're of the praying type, please keep him in your prayers because we'd love to see him on shows very soon once more on ESPN.
You hear this about people, and sometimes it might ring hollow, but in a business where there are a ton of egos run rampant, Matt Miller is generally one of the good dudes in the media world, especially in terms of the guys covering the draft. So, man, I was heartbroken when I saw that today. So, yeah, shout out to Matt and his family, hoping the best for them. And, just hope everything starts looking up, and looking forward to seeing Matt back after doing what he loves to do, which is evaluating prospects. And it's funny, CJ, Matt and I have swapped many texts over the years on some of those years where the draft was a little lean in terms of Longhorn participation. And he's like, man, one of these years we'll have some really good drafts, man. And there's been a few years like, hey, we're getting close. And now these last couple of years, and 27 has a chance to be the best year of them all. I know Matt's enjoying kind of what's happening on the 40 acres. So, yeah, big prayers up and thoughts with Matt and his family. So thank you, CJ, for reminding me of that. All right, that is going to do it for the Tuesday night live stream here on Texas Football. CJ, thank you for the time, the knowledge, the intel, the expertise as always. Huge shout out behind the scenes to Matthew, the MVP. Producer Matt is at On Texas Football, making everything work behind the scenes. Thank you, everybody in the chat, for your participation. Thank you especially for the super chats that came in. A lot of good questions tonight. A lot of ground we had to cover, and not enough time to do it. So thanks, everybody, for your participation. Shout out to our sponsors tonight, our lead sponsor, Andy Ludicky and My Perfect Franchise. Also, shout out to Mark Saunders, Allstate, and Prize Picks for their sponsorship. Real quick reminder, if you're not a member over at OnTexasFootball.com, you still got time to get over the site and take advantage of our limited time offer for new subscribers. $3 for your first 3 months of access at OnTexasFootball.com. In terms of recruiting coverage, nobody's got more boots on the ground. Nobody's got more consistent and better intel than the OTF staff. So, again, new subscribers, make sure you take advantage of that offer. $3 for your first 3 months of access at OnTexasFootball.com. Get over to the site and sign up right now. Hey, make sure you hit that like button on this live stream. Make sure that you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel if you're not. And especially since we have multiple commitment announcements this week, got to make sure your notifications are set. So that way, anytime we go live or we drop a new video, you're not going to miss any of our Longhorn coverage or breaking news. If you got any questions, comments, concerns, you can direct them to the guys bright and early tomorrow morning. Coffee and Football. Lineup change for tomorrow. I did the live stream last night with Coach Shipley. That means Rod Babers will be in the house tomorrow night. So the Wednesday night crew will be Rod with CJ and Marcus. Sandman, Silver Spur Sicko, if you're listening to this, please be kind to Rod as he fills in on Wednesday and deals with the Wednesday crew. So everybody be kind to Rod tomorrow. So that is going to do it for us here on the Tuesday night live stream. For CJ, for Matthew, for the entire On Texas Football staff, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And until next time, hook 'em.
Hook 'em.